Hey guys, Adam from Chapel Forge. Matt is here with me today. Today we're going to be working on your lift bowl style mixers. I'm going to give you a run through on how to clean them, re-grease them, and I think we've already done the video on the tilt head, artisan, ultra powers, those style, like down below here. So those are all done. So we'll bring you along on this journey. All right, so this is a 550 professional series. The other one's a professional series. That one's a commercial series over there. So this is your lift bowl style here, where you crank the lever and the bowl goes up. This one, I think I remember talking to the customer, and they stated that they're I think they're having issues with the speed control, and it's definitely not as smooth as it should be. So we're going to take the beauty band off here, and you want to have some type of little container to put your nuts and screws in, your bolts, the little pieces you don't want to lose. Beauty band pops off with one screw. On this one, it's a square bit. This is a square one, I think. Yeah, square one. Some of them are Phillips, some of them are flathead. There's going to be four on either, or four total, two on either side. So you're going to take those off to get into your box area, or underneath the cap. Depends on the age of the mixer, depends on if they're Phillips, flathead, or square head. The newer ones are square head. You can't always go off the band on the back, because I've had it that the beauty band is a Phillips, but then the rest of it's all square head. Once those four are out, pops right off. Set that to the side. Cap for your transmission. This is where all your gears are. This is your motor, and this is the speed board. There's an issue with this one because it's definitely not moving like it should. Binding up somehow and doesn't want to go through the gears without really putting some force on it, so we'll have to check that out then. So this one's got a metal gearbox or transmission lid. This one here has a plastic lid. When you are tightening the screws down on these, you've got to be really, really careful with these not to over tighten it, or it will crack that transmission housing. The metal ones are a little bit more resilient. You can get replacement housings, the lid here, to swap out from the plastic. I personally like the metal ones better, but that's up to how much you want to spend. I get a lot of my parts, pretty much all my parts, from Mr. Mixer. He's a licensed KitchenAid parts distributor. All right, so the next step, we're going to take the lid, the cover off the transmission box here. The last screw, which is back here behind by the circuit board, be careful when you're putting your screwdriver in there to not bang that up. Just going to give it a little pressure, get it to pop. When you bring it up, you're going to have to work it away from these wires. And I dropped the screw down in there. All right, guys, so here's your gears. Looks much different than the Artisan. Still the same concept, still kind of the same idea, but they're going to look a little different, except for like pretty much one of them. If I can get it out of here. Try not to get too greasy. So this one here, your hub gear, that is the one that's going to look the same from mixer to mixer. They're pretty much identical. That's your transmission cover. It's gonna have some grease in it. We're gonna scrape that out here in a minute. When you're taking this apart, be very careful and remember where these parts go, because there's 2, 3, let's see here, on 4 or 5 different pieces here. We'll count them out. So you have your 2 bearing races here. So you have this one here and this one here. And on this end, when it comes out, remember how it comes out? This one here has this bearing. Then there's, actually, split that. There's this piece here, this little washer-like piece that caps this ball bearing race, and then another one, and it's flat on one side and grooved on the other for that ball bearing to ride in. That's off that side of the shaft. This one here has a little nub right here. It's a little different than the other one. I'll show you here the difference. So you got to make sure that you remember which side that goes on when you put it back together. There is a snap ring on the base of this here that we'll get to once we clean this grease off, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So you want to take your scraper, kind of put it down here at the base, and you can spin the planetary and scrape that grease off pretty quick and easy. So what this gear does, the worm gear spins the worm follower gear, which then turns your other gears here. And I honestly don't remember them off the top of my head. I always have to try to look at them on the parts list to remember exactly the names, because I only have so much room to remember things. So we'll scrape some of this grease out so that it's not in our way. These also don't take near the amount of grease that your tilt heads do. As you can see, the space inside of a tilt head, I should have left one open, but if you go to our other video, you'll see the space in there is much greater space, and you can put a full like 4 ounces of grease in that. These take about 1/3. If you put too much grease in, they will not work properly. You also can not put enough in, so you got to be really careful that you put the proper amount in, that it's not enough, but it's also not too much that it doesn't work properly. So I'm going to shut the camera off here for a little bit. You don't want to sit here and watch me scrape grease out for 30 minutes or whatever. So I'm going to do that once I get to this part here. Actually, I could probably, yeah, I can get you this part here, and then we'll kill the camera for a little bit. So you want to take a pair of snap ring pliers. They work like that. You're going to put it in the 2 little divots of the snap ring. Open it just enough. You don't have to go crazy with it, just enough that it slides off. Make sure that you don't lose that it doesn't go flying. Then we can lift this gear off. That snap ring was holding it in place. Slide this one off, and then there's a pin here that you pop that pin out. You slide this little pin out, and then your planetary will drop down. Sometimes you got to give it a little persuasion. Take a rubber mallet, gently tap, and it'll drop down. There's your planetary gear. I'll show you how to get that off a little bit. And then we will take this gear out, set it to the side, make sure there's no washer here. Some of them have a little like washer right there. There isn't. So now I'm going to clean the grease out of this, the housing, and off the gears, and we'll show you that here in a second. So this is your worm following gear. This is your bevel gear. This is the one that's kind of, yeah, I mean, you can see what it looks like there. Trying to think of a descriptive word, and I'm drawing a blank. So that's your bevel gear. I guess you could say it bevels from one side to the other. And this would be the worm following gear. This one has that little kind of squared off side with two rounded sides. So that's a worm following gear there. And then your hub gear. Thresher bearings are these here. And then these are the front and rear bearing bushings. And these are you're going to find on your 600s, your 500 plus, your lift bowl style mixers is what you're going to find these on. What I'm doing here is just removing the old grease. So I'm just taking my tool here and I'm just sliding it in between each cog of this hub gear and just removing the excess grease from it. Just trying to get the bulk of it off. Just like an oil change, you know, you drain your old oil on your car to replace it with new. It's the same with this grease. We want to get all this old grease off and get this gear as clean as we can before we put new grease in. It also gives us an opportunity to look at each cog of that gear and make sure there's no damage to it, no wear spots. If you do, if your grease has like a shimmer or looks like glitters in it, there's a good chance that one of those gears are wearing and putting off metal shavings. And those metal shavings in your grease, rubbing against all those gears, will act like sandpaper and it will wear those gears down much quicker. So you just want to make sure you go across it, make sure that there's no metal shavings. Get as much of the old grease out as you can. I have a few tools here that the common DIYer probably does not have. It's just when you do this many mixers, you find little tools that make your job go quicker and easier. But you could use something as simple as a flathead screwdriver and use that to scrape and wipe it off, and then scrape some more. Q-tips, maybe some type of kitchen utensil would work, but a flathead works just fine too. So that one's pretty clean. I'm going to set that one to the side, and I'll grab the bevel gear. I'm just going to sit here and scrape these all out also. Okay, so that one's all cleaned out. Put that one to the side. Now this one here is a little harder to clean because of the shape of it. Make sure you don't lose any parts and pieces in your paper towel. You don't wad that up and throw it out in the trash. It's not fun having to search for it later. Scrape both sides of these. Now I have one of my jigs that I have set up for this just because it makes my life easier. So I just set this in here like this. That way I can have my hands free, and I will just sit here and go through each cog. If you're worried that you're not going to know where you started and stopped when there's this many gears, you can always take off of like where the part number is and start on one side of it and work your way back around to that next spot where you started. Kind of helps you not lose track of where you are. I'm going to flip it over here. Scrape this grease off again. Make sure I got it all off. Put that paper towel down. Spin that gear. Wipe that out. Get down this little crevice here. Then we're going to start at the top of this one here and just kind of turn our tool sideways a little bit and spin it down. And we'll start the next one. So that gear is all cleaned out now. Those gears are all cleaned out. So I'm going to put these parts in the parts washer. Meanwhile, I'll let Matt borrow the pick so he can get his stuff cleaned out. While they're in the parts washer, I'm going to clean out the bottom half of the mixer where that grease is, and I'm going to clean this out while I'm waiting on that parts mixer to do the washing on that. I forgot to show you something else that I wanted to do when before I throw these parts in the parts washer. So here again, snap ring pliers come into play. So you're going to take these, put them right here in your little snap ring. Snap rings fly, so be careful. You only need to open it up just a little bit, where that happens. So I need to go find that. Do as I say, not as I do. There'll be a pin, your gear, a metal washer. That's your planetary there. Your newer mixers do not come with the spring and washer here. You can get those aftermarket. They help hold your attachments in place. But we're going to pop this one off also, even though there's no spring and washer there, just so that we can get a good cleaning on this. Get all the grime, because there's a lot of grime right up in here, and that's where your mixer attachment hooks on to, like your dough hook and your whisk. So get all that gunk and food grime out of there, get it out of these crevices, and we'll wash and clean all these parts up too. Found it. It was 16 feet away from me, but I found it on the floor. Once I get the brunt of the grease out, I'll take a paper towel, wipe around inside, try to remove the rest that's in there. Good old Q-tips. Help you get in the little fun nooks and crannies that you can't with the paper towel. Go ahead and kill the camera, Matt. Okay, so you're going to put your snap ring back here. You're going to slide into the shaft. Let me just break this down for you again. I got to putting it together and forgot I was doing a video. So you'll put this snap ring on, take your shaft, slide it up in, make sure your washer's there. Put your pin in. Put your gear on, put your snap ring on, make sure it's sitting down in its groove. Put your metal washer on there. Yep. I took my grease and I put grease on the inside gear there where the planetary goes. I'm going to slide this up in, rotate it back and forth till those cogs line up. Then I'm going to put my washer down. I'm going to put my gear in. Take my pin. Slide my pin in. Make sure that's lined up. On the bottom of this shows how your pin needs to lay on here so that you can drop this bevel gear down on. And sometimes it takes a little bit to wiggle it back and forth till it lines up. Then you're going to take your snap ring, get that right over top of the shaft, slide it down, make sure it sits into its groove. Take your gears. Remember how you have those that little ball bearing race. Now that it's clean, you can really see it. Make sure that those are on the proper side. The other one's on the proper side. We're going to drop it down into here. Make sure everything lines up perfectly. So I'm going to pop this out and I'm going to get some grease in here and then I will put it back in. I like to take a little bit of grease, put it on the shaft of that hub gear, and coat that good so that it's well lubricated before I put it back into the transmission cover. I'm just going to take that and this, drop down in, a little tight fit, slide it in. Now I also like to make sure that before I put the gasket on, I go around here and make sure all the grease is off of this edge here where the gasket sits, so that I don't oversaturate the gasket with the grease. Also put a little bit here across the top because it'll sit into this bearing housing, the sleeve where it rides. Want to make sure that that's sitting good and lubricated. And be careful when you pull your gasket out of the bag that you don't rip it. That's what it'll look like. It's going to lay down like this. The open end is going to go towards your motor. And you're going to take your housing and set it right down over top. You might have to spin your motor to get it to have those gears line up. There, you saw how it dropped down. Now those are all meshed up and lined up properly. So now we can go back to putting the screws in. Like I said again, when you're tightening these down, be careful, especially if you have the plastic transmission housing, that you don't crack it. That'll lead to your grease having an ability to leak out over time, which will take away from it being able to lubricate properly, and it'll create a mess over time. So I run them in with my power driver just because it's a little quicker for me. But I don't crank it down with that. I still go by feel. So then I'll just snug them up by hand. These square head are very easy to strip, so be careful when you're tightening them down or loosening them up that you don't strip the heads. They're, for some reason, really soft and easy to strip. So that's how you do the grease change on that. This one has some other problems that I need to dig into, so we'll tackle that later. But I believe it's going to have to do with the circuit board here, the speed board. So I'll worry about that later. But that's how you do a grease change. The only other thing you do is, you know, if your speed board wasn't disconnected like I have mine here, you would just put your housing back down on top. You'd put your screws in on both sides, put the beauty band on with the end cap screw on the back, give it a wipe down, and she's ready to go. Turn it on, let it run through its paces. Because this one's not working properly, I'm not going to do that until after everything is fixed. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a good day. So this mixer here, we were working on it with you in this video, and one of the problems was with the speed control plate. Sorry, speed control board. It was really sticky. It was actually not moving at all. Like, it was stuck. It wouldn't move. So just out of curiosity, I was able to split the control piece from the actual circuit board, and it had a ton of gunk buildup. It was really, really sticky. And now it moves super smooth, so I was able to save that customer the cost of the plate, or the speed board, and it works just like it should. We were able to get that clean. So that was a kind of a cool win for today. And we're gonna get the beauty band on, give her another wipe down, and send her back home.